I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor for Now Media, out there in the nation's capital in Ottawa. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. It's nice and kind of like mostly sunny, I would say. And out there in the nation's capital,
it's hot and it's sticky, and there's smoke in the sky. So not perfect.
well, the same as the Canadian economy. The Canadian economy in trouble. That's one of the headlines. That's the big headline, actually. A tale of two sectors in Canada, those private versus public. No singing and no walking in the woods. I had an interview yesterday all about that. No singing and no walking in the woods. And is there a market to export other than the U.S.? BC racks up the debt and a whole lot more on the Really Big Show. We got lots today, absolutely lots, but a lot of it centered around our economy that is stalling big time. And the lead story here is the unemployment rate falls. Or actually, the unemployment rate goes up, the employment rate goes down. So Canada loses 41,000 jobs, as now we got 1.6 million people classed as unemployed in Canada here. And the market expected a gain of 10,000, and we have a loss of 41,000. Those are big numbers for Canada.
I mean, yeah, it's disastrous, isn't it? And yet, somehow the unemployment rate stays at 6.9. Not so sure about that, as is often the case with the inflation rate as well. It's kind of like, you what? What are you talking about? Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But there are lots of ways of chopping up this data to make it look either better or worse, really. But one way that's maybe some people would be inclined to say that it's a good thing is that employment hasn't really changed in the core ages. It's basically static. So older people, basically, and then it's just the youth. The youth they're really screwed. And, people who say, oh, it's not so bad, it's just the young, I think, that is obviously going to come back to bite us.
That is the future.
Yeah, soon enough. And that's a story about immigration as well, of course. Then there's the public-private split, where public sector is doing fine and dandy, but basically all of these job losses are in the private sector, which is really very, very bad, obviously, because no money derives from the public sector, really. That's more like spending than earnings.
Yeah, the public sector doing very well. We talked about even like Sky Canada. The doctor there making $393,000 a year. As she looks out and says everything looks fine to her, I'm sure. But you know what's coming? As you squeeze out most of the private sector, there goes your taxation, and there goes your 393,000 job. At some point, there will be a time of reckoning for those people. And we got lots to talk about.
Well, not lately. What's been happening lately is we've been going to the bond markets and borrowing money so that we can continue to pay people $400,000 to look at the sky.
Exactly, to look at the sky, actually. And I wish you have like 7 people that can answer the phone, and it's not even like Scully and Mulder.
7 assistants.
7 assistants to look out the window and answer the phone. And again, most of the job loss. But if you look at that map, there's some sectors that just look really bad. You're like Newfoundland, 10.5%. And these numbers are actually higher in reality. These numbers are higher. These are the reported numbers, right? But the real numbers are going to be higher than this, right?
Well, there are lots of people that just don't register. They don't register as unemployed. Basically, they don't tell the government, so they don't count. Whereas, it goes into longer-term unemployment. It says nearly a quarter of the 1.6 million people who are unemployed are classed as long-term unemployed, which is 27 weeks or more of looking for a job and not finding one, which is huge. I mean, but a lot of people just disappear, don't they? They sort of disappear. They don't show up in the statistics because they're not classed as searching for work, even though they really might be.
And the Bank of Canada did not lower rates. And, Doug Ford said that was ridiculous. But there's a lot of people out there right calling that Canada is in a recession. Why aren't they lowering the rates? It's just, it's absolutely puzzling that here we have our economy sinking into a recession, and we haven't lowered the rates here.
Yeah, I mean, on the BC front as well, I don't think we've got the press. No, we don't have the press release yet from the BC government, but it'll come through soon. and it'll be something along the lines of, look how resilient and great we are in British Columbia, which is what they say every time. But you have a look at BC, it's gone up from 5.6 to 5.9, the unemployment rate. But then you zoom in on some of these cities, like Kamloops, 10.7% unemployment rate in Kamloops. That is crazy to me looking at that. That's ridiculously high. And even Victoria, up a percentage point. Victoria is usually just immune to this kind of thing. But I mean, clearly there are problems in BC as well.
Yeah, and in mining too, like we look at mining, I did an interview with a mining guy. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but mining too in Canada, like if we look at the diamond mines, there's a closure up there in the north there, because the value of diamonds has dropped dramatically with all these synthetic diamonds and that. You know, that was one of the big things in the north was diamond mines. And the other thing we did that story yesterday where it says, you know, that there'll be no new mines unless it's approved by the First Nations up there too. So there'll be no new mines. There you go.
Or new anything. Well, new turbines, new wind turbines, but I'm not sure that does much for employment, does it?
51,000 jobs lost, full-time jobs. The private sector lost 39,000 jobs. Unemployment rate, and now it's, but the ages to 15 to 24 lost 34,000 jobs. That's crazy, right? Just crazy.
I mean, it is nuts when you think that huge, and this has already been pointed to by other commentators around Canada, but there are enormous amounts of immigrants coming into Canada every month. The argument, and we became very familiar with it, didn't we, during COVID, when almost everybody in industry started to scream for the immigration taps to be opened up because they're saying we've got a shortage of labor. But you look at this and it suggests that actually there's an oversupply of labor in quite a huge way, because young people tend to do low skill jobs as well.
Yeah.
There's a glut of labor there, and vast numbers of immigrants are coming in and directly competing with Canadian-born youth. That's not a good way to sustain faith in the immigration system or even in the governmental system as a whole.
This next chart here should make you most Canadians angry. Unless you work for the government, then hey, it should make you very, very happy. But if you look at this is the blue line is the private sector, and the red line is the public sector.
It's just Keynesianism, really, isn't it? This is just an attempt to get out of an economic dead end by pumping tax money into the economy. It's just another way of doing that, isn't it? It's just like public jobs as welfare, which we've seen a lot of in recent years, haven't we?
You look at that recovery by the public sector after COVID and the lack of recovery with the private sector.
And then go back to Chrétien's time and also Stephen Harper, and that it's not quite the same story back there, is it?
Yeah, that's the financial crisis there, that where it drops off there in the private sector there as well. There you go. It's really disappointing, and you know, like it seems like it's getting worse. Like if you wanted to, and it seems like the private sector can't keep up with what the public sector is doing. Like we $393,000 for a lady to stare out the window and look at the sky. We could do without that job. But Canadians should be angry about that. $393,000 for Sky Canada.
It's chicken feed, though, isn't it? Based on like when the big boys sit down and do their budgets, that's not even something that enters their mind as a sum worth thinking about, is it? They're looking at the big juicy billions of dollars that they're going to give to Honda and other companies like that.
Yeah. If you're watching right now, do you think for our version of Scully and Mulder there that we need to pay this lady $393,000 a year to look at the sky, and the 7 of her servants there to answer the phone? I don't know what they're doing. It's like Canada's going to discover aliens first. Maybe
they're making sure that she has access to X-Files episodes on demand.
That's probably what they're doing, because remember that they're streaming. They had record amounts of streaming data, and maybe that's their version of looking for aliens, is watching X-Files.
It's funny you should say that, because yesterday we had a laugh about this, and then we mentioned the James Webb Telescope. We said probably that's what's going to find them. There's a news story out today from the James Webb Telescope that they found a gas giant in Alpha Centauri, the system closest to us. It's like, yeah, because that cost like God knows how much, so many billions of dollars. It's the most sophisticated telescope in the world. Yeah, probably that's going to find aliens, isn't it? Rather than some random woman in Ottawa or wherever she is.
Yeah. Anyway, this from the Contrarian there, he put this out here that says, like, what's worse than the job numbers is we're still letting in 8,000 immigrants a month here pouring in. And we did that story on the Canadian government is inviting grandparents here when we already have a strained healthcare, and anybody that feels persecuted in the world for LGBTQ, you're invited here. In the meantime,
we don't just have. It's not just about strained healthcare. It's like our demographic picture is bleak. It's extremely, extremely dark. When you look at the average age in Canada is about 40 or something like that. No society in history has ever worked with that kind of with those kinds of demographics. For us to invite more people who are like in their 70s and 80s, that makes no sense whatsoever, does it? From any perspective except maybe political. That's the only way that could make sense.
And here's Bill C5, Mark Carney walking back his big bill here. So yesterday, he redefined his first major bill to mandate that industrial projects deemed fit for speedy approval must serve Indigenous interests. Legal text of Bill C5, passed in law June 26, states that only Indigenous interests may or can be considered. And so there you go. The core of the Act to the objective, these projects must advance the interests of Indigenous people, and they must contribute collectively to the clean growth of meeting Canada's objectives with respect to climate change. There's that word, climate change. He made the remarks prior to closed-door meetings with the leaders of the Métis Association from Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. Missing in there is Manitoba and British Columbia, because they wouldn't even come to the meeting.
But like I had to say I told you so. Not you literally, Jim, but the world in general.
No, you said it.
But
you said it.
This was always going to happen. Even right when Carney was going on about how we're going to build things, what do you say? Build things that we never thought were possible, or do things we didn't think were possible at speeds we didn't know we could go at, or some sort of illiterate catchphrase like that. And I remember listening to that. I was just thinking, no, you won't, because it's the same old groups will lobby this to death, as they always do. Quebec, BC, certain First Nations, certain NGOs and charities and whatnot, non-profits. And look what's happened. Here we are, like a number of months later, and nothing is happening except like more and more attempts to kind of water things down to get the approval of certain lobbies.
Do you remember when the senators asked this Bill C5 if any particular group would have a veto over this project, over projects? And Dominic LeBlanc replied, vetoes is an aggressive word you can use. Vetoes is a restaurant in Mountain Road in Moncton. That's how serious they respond to questions about their bill. That's what they think of Canadians. That's exactly what they think of you.
But it's just, what do they think of themselves, though? Because they all know this. They know this a lot better than I do, and any of us like outsiders do. They'll know this inside out. They know who they can and can't consult, or who they have to consult if they want to do anything. Consult, if you know, catch my drift. They know all about this. So why did they say that they were going to do it all? And why, if they knew this was the lay of the land, why haven't they approached it differently? Why haven't they, tried to show some leadership? But instead, it's just the same old thing with different language, isn't it?
Yeah, because Poilievre had a plan. He said he was going to consult with them and make plans with them. And here we're going full steam ahead. We're going to push through everything. And then, and then nothing happens. And all we do is get a walk back. And then they didn't even get participation from, like you said, if the Métis that they were talking about, the Manitoba is where a lot of that is. And they didn't even show up. And BC
exactly,
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
by the way, we speaking of BC, we've just got it in now. Ravi Kahlon has released his assessment of the jobs figures, and he says, this is the first sentence: today's labor force survey shows the impact of US President Donald J. Trump's tariff threats is being felt across the country. So it's just Trump, obviously. So don't worry, anyone.
Everything's Trump's fault, except for maybe somebody should ask Ravi Kahlon Who blocked the Northern Gateway pipeline?
But also, like, when the jobs figures, because they were a bit better, weren't they, last month? When they look a bit better, Trump isn't even mentioned, is he? Trump didn't do that. But if it's bad, oh yeah, that was Trump. That was Trump this time.
We got the Prime Minister coming out of that meeting there with the Métis there. Let's listen to what he has to say and see what you get from that.
It was very good. It was very constructive. Hi, everyone. It's a good place to go afterwards, actually. No, it was a great meeting, very constructive. Lots of good ideas, good energy in the room. There's lots to do, and actually, when we take, as the government of Canada, when we take this meeting with the Métis, the meeting in Inuvik 2 weeks ago, just about 2 weeks ago with Inuit rights holders, meeting with First Nations rights holders, there's a model that's starting to come together. There's no one-size-fits-all. Obviously, there'll be a variety of different projects, a variety of different approaches and participations. But there's a very strong momentum, and it's a momentum, I'll say, that's shared across the country. Canadians coming together, looking to build together and participate, take matters into our own hands. Spent that meeting talking about building our country. Earlier this week, we were in Kelowna, talking about building and pivoting and building the competitiveness of our forest product sector. We're going to spend tomorrow with Canadian Armed Forces, building security and defense. There is so much for us to do, and we're very focused on doing all of that, focusing on what we can control. And yes, we're having discussions with the Americans, but Canadians want us to focus here at home, build out home, and that's what we're doing.
How are those discussions going with the U.S.? When are you speaking to President Trump?
Well, that was good, wasn't it? Prime Minister of this country doesn't even know where he was the previous day. Literally doesn't even know the city that he was in. He was in West Kelowna. And nor did Canadian Press, this country's only news agency. Why do they not know that West Kelowna is a different city from Kelowna? I'm not exactly a West Kelowna chauvinist here, but that is ridiculous that they don't know that they're two different cities.
Yeah,
but also, it sounds to me like a smart kid who hasn't done his homework. And you're like, Mark, where's that homework you said you're going to do? And it's, what I will say is the momentum is in the right direction. It's like, do your homework.
One of the biggest things that I notice in the tale of two nations too is the access to the press. We talk about this all the time. Trump would have stood there for 15 minutes taking questions. He's finished his monologue and he walked away.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to answer
questions.
Because the question would be, what projects? You talk about this all the time. You say, we got projects, not one size fits all. We got all these projects. We're looking at projects and this project and that project. It's been a while now. Which project? Which project? Where? Which project?
Yeah. But I get the feeling that Carney really doesn't like to speak. He doesn't like to do these press conferences because and that, but it's because he's not very good at it. Let's be honest. I mean, even the big fans of Mark Carney presumably will admit that. Even Mark Carney himself has admitted that in the past, where he said he's not very good at speaking, and he isn't. He's not very good at communicating his thoughts, and he really struggles. So I think as a consequence, he kind of just wants to get it over with, doesn't he, and not make a mistake.
Yeah, just to give people history on the name West Kelowna, it used to be West Bank, and the city was incorporating, and the city of Kelowna wanted to take it over, and there was a vote, and the West Bank at the time said they're not interested, and Sharon Shepherd, the mayor at the time, said, well, if you don't want to be taken over by the city of Kelowna, don't you dare use Kelowna in your name at all. You're not allowed to use Kelowna in your name at all. And what they do? Incorporated under West Kelowna. Again, this overreach by politicians.
There was a referendum, wasn't there?
That's right. This overreach by politicians saying things, like we're going to talk about it later too, about the Nova Scotia Premier. It's ridiculous, right? This overreach all the time. They think they have more power than they deserve. And Dominic LeBlanc, and this is the important part here, is what they think of you. When they asked about veto power, which turns out there's a ton of veto power in this Bill C-5. Vito's is a restaurant on Mountain Road in Moncton. Just
desperate.
And this is from the Winnipeg Sun, just what we were just talking about. Billions of dollars is flowing out of Canada into the U.S. And also, not only is it capital flowing, it's also a brain drain flowing. People with the means are leaving. And here's the Winnipeg Sun says, do something. Something. What's the project?
Yep.
One. Name one. And here's the Canadian Steel, one of the big Canadian steel makers, Algoma, the CEO says, there is no market other than the U.S. market for them. There is no market.
It's certainly the bulk, isn't it? The bulk of their exports. But other countries have their own, they usually have their own steel sectors. Like China, big building countries that build a lot, they tend to produce their own steel and consider it a national security concern.
Yeah, and Europe does as well. But we could use the steel to build, what was that? Oh, right, some ferries. We don't want to do that, though. Why should we? Ridiculous.
We don't want to upset the Chinese Communist Party, do we?
Apparently not. And here's a chart for everybody to remember. I've seen everybody's seen this a million times, but there you go.
Not good. Although top of the list there, should certainly brace for impact. The Irish, they are being absolutely shafted by Trump, because their whole business model is basically taking away revenue that should rightfully belongs to the US. Yeah. Shielding them in a lower tax jurisdiction.
Yeah, so a lot of the tech companies went there, which you would say that shouldn't happen in the first place. But again, forget about Ireland. Yeah. Where's Canada? Where's Canada? You know who we're ahead of? Luxembourg. Most people couldn't even find Luxembourg on a map.
Oh yeah, all 300 people that live in Luxembourg. It shouldn't even really be on there. It's not even it's more like a city than a country, isn't it? So really, Canada's at the bottom of that list.
Pierre Poilievre is heading into his election. What day is that election? It's pretty quick here, isn't it? Like in the next few days, I think.
I think it's on the 18th. Am I wrong?
It's coming up right away here. But anyway, he says he'll compel Commons vote this fall on capital gains tax breaks. That was part of his platform, was that he would say there were no capital gains, and you could plow those capital gains into another investment in Canada. That's what Canada needs, is investment, right? And he says we need to get building right now. So he's going to put that as soon as, assuming he gets his seat back, which is, I think really, really like a 99.999% chance. But CBC doing the work there, propping up that one lady there in the area there to run against Pierre Poilievre and Battle River Crowfoot. They're doing more press on her than they do on Pierre Poilievre, right? It's just absolutely ridiculous. So it's August 18th, that by-election is in Battle River Crowfoot. I was actually there. I went to the Tyrrell Museum and I seen the Poilievre signs around there. I didn't see a lot of the 200 other signs. There was a few signs out there, but mostly it was Poilievre signs, right? And he says we need to get building now. That's why the Conservative proposal for a Sovereignty Act will take action immediately. This fall will introduce a motion calling on the government to put forward this legislation. If I was Carney, I'd put it forward and saying if it doesn't work, then you can blame the Conservatives. If it does work, you can take credit for it. It's kind of a win-win, right?
Well, Carney's and the Liberals, I suppose, generally, they've been pretty shameless in the way that they've taken everything, really, or a large proportion of the Conservative policies, and also just Conservative attitudes. They plucked Conservative attitudes and the way that they position themselves on certain issues. But I'm surprised he hasn't just taken it. I guess there must be a reason, but we don't have a media that's particularly interested in scrutinizing Mark Carney and asking him why would you not want to do that, and actually trying to pin him down and make him answer. So I guess we'll have to sort of guess why he doesn't do it.
I mean, the people can thank the Conservative Party for getting rid of the increase in the capital gains inclusion. And now Poilievre is saying he wants it down to zero. That was part of his platform. And they would actually, you and I talked about this while the election was going on, that this would be rocket fuel for the Canadian economy. And God knows we need some rocket fuel for the Canadian economy as that money flows to the U.S.
The rest of this package that Poilievre's put forward would also be rocket fuel. I mean, I'm trying to put it in as sort of objective a way as possible, but how can you deny? If you got rid of all of these restrictions on infrastructure projects, people would build them. That would increase the economy. I don't think the opposition argues, differently. What they say is it would destroy the environment or whatever. But certainly this package that Poilievre has assembled I don't think you could deny that it would boost the economy, at least in raw numbers like GDP.
And, like Carney was standing there and said, they're doing what Canadians want us to do. I'm not sure if he's listening to which Canadians he's listening to, but Poilievre says Canadians expected results. And I would say that is more true than anything. Canadians want results, especially our youth. And he said, let's talk about Mark Carney. Mark Carney for the last 10 years was net zero, keep it in the ground, green fanatic. He said he wanted to keep at least half of our oil in the ground. He testified against the Northern Gateway pipeline. He supported all the carbon tax. He publicly spoke in favor of the electric vehicle mandate to ban your gas and diesel-powered cars. He's going to talk about that later. He tried to present himself as some big change because he looks and sound different than Trudeau. He's a smarter version, 100%. But he's also supported all the same policies. What he's doing right now is ragging the puck. And I would say that if you're a hockey person, he's ragging the puck, trying to drag people in, believing that one day he will do something, but he hasn't done anything other than hold out a lot of meetings and make a lot of statements, and we've heard that over and over again. Most of his statements he makes, you know what it reminds me of? When I was in college there, and you go to those organizational behavior, OB courses there, and you listen to these groups talk, and they just talk circles. They use the buzzwords that they're supposed to use in their presentations and that, but they say nothing.
Well, it's if you work backwards from a Carney speech or a Carney press conference, and you sort of start from that point that he wanted to say nothing, then it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Then it's like less embarrassing for him then. But if he's tried to say something, if that's been his aim and it comes out as it comes out, then I think he needs to to see someone. He needs to see a speech therapist or something.
Do you know what blows me away is how some of the politicians, including Doug Ford, David Eby, and a lot of the media in Canada, call Trump a dictator, where we have a government that will not be held accountable here in Canada, will not take questions from the press. Like, and which is more of a dictatorship? Which government won't take questions from the press? Russia.
Well, it is funny though, isn't it? Because the Canadian attitude, generally speaking, among the sort of intelligentsia or whatever, the attitude towards America is like, oh, bloody hell, like they really have this kind of dictatorial system, the presidential system, the imperial presidency, to use a political science term. And yet, yeah, when you look at it, I mean, not so much right now, but when you look at the presidential system in recent years, it does really seem like there's been more scrutiny of the president's actions than of the prime minister. And because once particularly with Trudeau, where you had the NDP propping them up, who just didn't ever do or say anything, and just allowed everything to pass. And then the Liberal caucus, which was so servile, even when Trudeau was rock bottom in the polls, they were so worshipful and servile. In that system, in the parliamentary system, it's kind of like, what can stop the prime minister then? It's supposed to be parliament. But if parliament is on its back, the prime minister can pretty much do whatever he wants.
Way more checks and balances in the United States than there is in Canada, including their court system, which acts way better. Like, we're still getting court cases from COVID. Like, how many years has it been? We're still getting some of those court cases. Like even the Freedom Convoy people, they're still in court. Like, how long does it take? It's absolutely ridiculous, right? Anyway,
but then there was also in relation to the Ottawa truckers, there was an absolutely damning court judgment on the invocation of the Emergencies Act. But what happened? Like, where's the reckoning? Was there any kind of attempt at reconciliation? Any attempt to acknowledge this was absolutely insane, and the court has just stuck the knife into the stomach of the Liberal Party? Was there any attempt there? But no, it just kind of vanished, didn't it? Yeah. And it's just people like you and me that still even remember that happened.
Same as that green slush fund that Stephen Guilbeault's companies were accused of slopping at, the $250 million. Documents still not released. And nobody talks about it. The media, where? Right? And we're not allowed in the parliamentary gallery to ask questions. Why not? That's a good question.
If they would even answer them, even if we were in there, would they even stop it? Because again, it's at their discretion, isn't it? It's if they feel like stopping and talking to you in the corridors.
Here's another Holly Dolan Blacklock story here. Many Canadian researchers resent equity, diversity, inclusion criteria to determine who qualifies for federal funding. It says a submission to the Common Science Committee. Questioning a researcher about their sexual orientation and actual occurrence has no place in research. And that's what we've been doing here in Canada. That's the thing. So many Canadian, the document cited one instance in which a researcher was asked if they were LGBTQ for a project that had nothing to do with the LGBT community. Questioning a researcher about their sexual orientation and actual occurrence has no place, nor does the questioning whether they are indigenous, have physical limitations, etc., wrote Dr. Maurice Baumeier, a biochemist and associate professor at the University of Quebec.
But I mean, for want of a, I really don't like using this term, but forgive me, I'm going to use it again. The left, the liberal left, whatever, they've gone so far down a path by themselves that they will look at this woman here, this doctor, and they'll say, "Oh wow, she must be a fascist," even though she's just said the most obvious thing, the most obvious principle within Western civilization, which is basically a version of equality before the law or something like that.
Look how she
or
qualifies.
Let's not care about your background. It's about what you can bring. It's about science. It's about how good you are at science or whatever. But she will almost certainly pay a price for this, even if it's just reputationally.
She even says this here at the end: funding should be awarded to the best researcher with the most relevant and important research for advancing knowledge and adding value to society. The brief is being submitted in my personal capacity and in no way reflects the views of my primary employer. Obviously, she knows she's probably going to get fired.
Yeah, and the thing is, this will be like pouring acid into the ears of Liberal MPs and lots of Liberal supporters. They don't want to hear this kind of thing, even though to me this is the most innocuous, obvious thing in the world. It's like, all you have to do is reverse it and say, look, take yourself back to the 1960s or something like that and just say, no, this guy's a really good scientist. I know he's black and gay, but he's a really good scientist. Let's have him. And then people say, no, he's black and gay. We don't want that. But it's, for some reason, then it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's I understand that. But now that we're in this year, 2025, we have to discriminate in a different way. And it's really quite as ugly. But like I say, I mean, they're so far gone. Like that team, that half of the country just seem to be so committed to this and so far gone that, well, you can't really persuade them.
Here's some good news for the climate and religion. Carney government plans to spend millions propagandizing young Canadians about the climate emergency. So you're ready about to send your kids to school, so you can look forward to that.
I look forward to my son coming to tell me that the world is going to end and that he has climate anxiety or something like that, which is a real condition now, isn't it?
There's a lot of youth that say they don't want to have children because of the climate emergency. And so what does that do to the planet? I don't know.
Well, I suppose they would look at that as a good thing, wouldn't they? No humans equals good.
Except for the elites tend to have children. But hey, more deserved though, right? Dan McTeague, he wonders why the Canadian press, Toronto Star, Globe and Mail won't even cover this. We cover it all the time. We say it over and over again. And the EV mandate, or you will not have an auto sector here in Canada. But it says, 5 of the CEOs in Canada here says the EV mandate must end. And we're going to talk about it later in our auto and transportation section there, where we talk about where the future of automobiles is going for many. But I don't know. It seems odd that the Canadian media won't pick it up because it seems so obvious, right? And it's even Doug Ford doesn't scream about it that much. He doesn't, because he knows his auto sector is hanging by a thread. Yet, does he talk about the EV mandate?
It's a weird one, isn't it, with Dougie? But there's a lot, like all politicians are compromised in some way or another. Not necessarily in a sort of illegal way or whatever, but they're all compromised somehow by their relationships, by who supports them, whatever. And It just seems that that's the best answer I could give for that. And likewise, the Bill C-18, the Online News Act, which clearly doesn't work. It's clearly a bad idea. But certain powerful groups have lobbied for it. And I guess, therefore, we just have to suffer this nonsense.
The ones slopping at the trough, especially the CBC, that are drinking heavily out of the trough there.
Well, according to a couple of people I've interviewed who know the sector, a lot of them, or many of the big boys in the media, are afraid of losing their perch. They're afraid of innovators coming and being better than them and taking away their privileged position. And that would make sense, wouldn't it? If the object of C-18 was to make sure that the new media outlets snapping at the heels of the big boys can't rise, then
That's why part of the reason it's very hard for us as an independent media outlet to get access to these politicians. And it's part of even the press. They don't have. When have they stuck up for us and said Bill C-18 is killing local independent media? Well, they're at the the trough. They're slopping up government money. I did an interview yesterday though with the John Carpe from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. We talked about two things: no singing, and no walking in the park or the woods. And that is the no singing is almost like out of a bad Footloose movie. There is where they branded a Christian singer here that's going across Canada as MAGA singer. That's what the Canadian media outlets, the compromised ones that are like living off government money, put that label on him. And he said that's really dangerous. You go, well, listen to that interview. It's on Now Media's YouTube here, where you're watching here, and the story will be up today too. Is that you brand him as a MAGA singer so that you can marginalize him, minimize him, and also invoke a lot of hatred and get a lot of people out there. The typical. People that are going to go there and protest that, this singer shows up singing Christian songs.
But it's funny because even if you just kind of accept that, okay, they've called him a MAGA singer, what does that really mean? Make America Great Again, which is a catchphrase of Donald Trump, who's now the president, who won the popular vote in the United States. So a guy that just won an election based on a majority of voters in the US, that's so toxic and poisonous that it's like basically a slur. You might want to ask, like, hold on, are we looking at this the right way? The people who use that, it's just, there are an awful lot of people in the United States that are being kind of defamed there, I would argue.
Well, you can remember when he did win, and he won all 7 swing states by a lot. I'm just using his paraphrasing him there, by a lot.
A lot.
But instead of congratulating Trump on his victory, what did Justin Trudeau do?
Said that the stupid, bigoted American people couldn't vote for a woman.
He shamed the American voter and said that they are basically misogynist, that they didn't, and called them racist because they didn't vote for a black woman in the United States. Instead, they voted for, an old white guy.
And then a non-white woman, about a month later, was kicked out of the Liberal Party leadership race in very questionable circumstances.
Fired shamelessly as well, from her position as finance minister. The same guy.
And then also the two women that were in the last 4, they were defeated soundly, weren't they, by Mr. Whiteman.
And what did they do to the Ruby Dalla, the lady from with Indian heritage?
That's what I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, they treated her like she was basically. They wouldn't even let her run. They treated her like she was.
Yeah, they just fixed it to get rid of her. Took her money, really, didn't they? As far as we know.
But
also Chandaria, who has the misfortune of being a man, but has the benefit of not being white. He was also turfed, wasn't he? Just like Bernie Sanders style.
And here we got Dan Dix here. He's walking in the forest here. And let's play a little clip here from Dan Dix.
Climate lockdowns are officially here, and if you do what I'm doing right now in Nova Scotia, you could be fined $25,000. What do they think is going to happen if you dare to go out and take a hike? This? Canadians have been told over and over again that climate change is what's causing wildfires, but now the blame has been shifted to you directly, and you are the one who needs to be stopped. But guess what? Riding your bike and hiking and fishing doesn't cause wildfires. In fact, more often than not, the cause has been state control. Remember the shoe swap fires in BC? It turned out that the director of wildfire operations, Cliff Chapman, admitted that they started the fires with a controlled ignition.
We did conduct a planned ignition on that fire last Thursday. We did it cautiously. We knew the winds were coming. As those winds were approaching, going through the Caribou Fire Center, there was a continuous line of fuel between the main body of the fire and all of the communities along the North Shuswap. Unfortunately, with the wind that we knew was forecast and that was coming, that fire went above the control line that we burned off from, and then swept back into the communities in the North Shuswap.
These are the people who are supposed to have all of this under control. Or what about the recent fires in Lytton that was literally caused by the RCMP?
And the British Columbia RCMP taking responsibility for an out-of-control wildfire burning north of Lytton.
The BC RCMP has revealed that it accidentally sparked the Eisman Creek wildfire currently burning along Highway 12 just north of Lytton.
It does appear that equipment was simply failed. Obviously very unintentional.
Oops, our bad. But forget about that. It's you nature-loving Nova Scotians who need to be stopped at all costs. And speaking of costs, here's Nova Scotia's crime and punishment guide. Drunk driving, $1,000. Assault someone, $5,000. Use your phone while driving, $500. Drive without insurance, $2,000 to $5,000. Shoplifting under $5K, $1,000. Speeding 40 kilometers over the limit, $400. Trespass on private property, $500. Illegal dumping, $50,000 to $5,000. Vandalism, $1,000 to $5,000. Walk, hike, or bike in the woods, $25,000. They even set up a snitch line so that you can rat out your fellow neighbors.
So, and again, I talked to the.
That was like a little documentary, wasn't it?
I talked to the constitutional lawyer there, and I said he was going to wait a couple of days to see if the social media pressure and backlash would cause the Nova Scotia Premier to walk that back, because that's up till October 15th. And then they said they were sending a letter to cease and desist. So anyway, it's a good conversation with John Carpe there. You should listen to it. And here's a map here of showing you how much because this is a heat map of Canada here, and you can see where Nova Scotia is. It's got a little bit of red in there, but it's not much different than the rest of the country. So is this coming to the rest of Canada as well? Basically, 98% of Canada is woods. You know what I mean? Like if you look up from the sky there, it's mostly woods. Right? Most of the population in Canada lives along the thin little sliver on the bottom. Other than Feast, Edmonton,
I'm seeing a lot of it's civil disobedience, isn't it? That's the name for this. I'm seeing a lot of people just go there and say no, and they're trying to encourage each other to do that. I think it's quite appropriate, though, that it's civil disobedience, because I'm pretty sure that concept was invented by Henry David Thoreau, the guy that lived in the woods and wrote about it. So we're coming full circle.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and there's some like the people say, oh, he's a conservative. You can't say he's a liberal. And then somebody put up this picture. And there's our friend there, Tim Houston, with his other friends, the Liberals, Dominic LeBlanc, Chrystia Freeland, Doug Ford, usual suspects. And there's the mayor, the dancing queen.
Yeah.
The band gets
what a
back
gang.
Again. And then the other thing we talked about was Sean Foyt. And then there is a letter that John Carpe has sent to Abbotsford and saying you need to rescind your blocking of Sean playing in Abbotsford here. And we listened to a little bit from Sean Foyt here. That he's been all over the world, Iraq, Mozambique, Turkey, and Israel. And Canada is where he's facing the most grief for his Christian singing.
In Turkey, in Israel, in Iraq. I've gone into Mozambique, in all different parts of the world. And the biggest and most fierce resistance that I've faced has actually been in Canada. That's the biggest amount of persecution and resistance, and I did not expect that. But
stop, yeah. He's got music on in there. That's okay.
That's his music, I imagine, isn't it? But still, yeah.
No Jesus in Canada.
It's and it's cool. It really does. Whether it's true or not, they haven't done a very good job of dismissing the claims that it's politically motivated, because this guy is obviously, he belongs to a political movement that's opposed to the Liberal Party.
And where is Canadian press? Where is CBC on defending the constitutional or the Charter of Rights here in Canada and the freedom of expression? Where are they? Other than labeling him as a MAGA singer in their songs and their stories on him, MAGA.
But why would any self-respecting Canadian patriot want to defend a filthy MAGA demon, Jim? Answer that question.
Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, it's a good interview. Go watch that with John Carpe and myself there. It was good. John Carpe has been on a few times, and he is one of the few. He's the only constitutional freedom lawyer in Canada that picks up these causes for free. The only one. In the United States, they got tons of these types of organizations that look after, like the Bill of Rights and different things in its organizations and lawyers. But in Canada, he's the only one, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. So if you and they're funding also the legal battle for Tamara Litch and who's the other freedom convoy? Shane Barber, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
And so he had Pierre Poilievre there saying Canada says provinces. Says provinces across Canada should have shovel-ready projects with proponents and funding already in place. There you go. Poilievre says one-man EB, and this is the story on that, because EB, one man can't block a project. British Columbians want a pipeline. Albertans want a pipeline. Canadians want a pipeline. And that's what when I'm on X, that's the question I have for Anita Nan and all these photo ops is like pipeline, oil pipeline, question mark? Like that's the only question that should be on people's minds. When is the pipeline? Where's the pipeline? Where's the pipeline?
There's a good line here where he says, we can't wait till everybody's on side. And then he says, there's some people out there who don't think Elvis is dead. We can't get everybody to agree on any basic fact, even the basic fact that we need a pipeline. It's quite an interesting, a colourful way to highlight the flaws in the Canadian political system, isn't it? Which is that there are people who are they represent such a tiny minority view, like extreme environmentalists, for example. They really, nobody supports them, basically. There's a very small minority of people, but they can often succeed in stopping these big projects through lawfare or through civil disobedience or whatever. And it's a little bit ridiculous, isn't it? Because no society has ever fully agreed on anything, even, what condition Elvis Presley is in right now. So you can't just give in. You can't just give in to everybody that complains.
And the bigger problem here in Canada is we've had some minority governments, including in BC, including in Canada, that fringe parties have too much say. Like in BC, the Green Party. Do you know how much weight they've carried over the province here for 10 years, the Green Party? And then also in the Liberals of the last 10 years, the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, has destroyed his own party with it. And for some strange reason, the Liberals survived that. I did play a nice clip in the John Carpe interview, was the 1984 commercial by Steve Jobs there on Apple. And you remember that commercial, I'm sure, when the girl with the red shorts run into the room and everybody's just zombies staring at the screen. Well, I mean, the screen in the analogy there is the CBC speaking to you, and the voters, the elbows up crowd, sitting there staring at the screen, and the Liberals spewing their rhetoric on climate change and destroying the economic prosperity of Canada.
I'm sure the CBC would love to have the kind of ratings that Big Brother had in 1984. But I mean, the analogy kind of works, except nobody watches CBC.
Well, the people elbows up crowd sure does.
Yeah, I guess so. There's that demographic. So they should, if the ad was going to work, they'd all have to be in their 70s or something.
Carney to make a Canadian Armed Forces announcement in Trenton, and he's going to make that today. And who has signed Canada up to be a defense spending target of 5%, into the future. Like all of these numbers are into the future. He'll be working on, how many times did he mock Poilievre on slogans? And all I've heard from this guy so far is slogans. Building security and defense. Slogan, isn't it? Where's the deal? Where's the deal?
Well, it's also something that his predecessor was accused of quite often, which is just flying around the country and around the world and doing these announcements. But then, I mean, nothing really happens. But I was going to say that, but I'm thinking that's a bit unfair on Justin Trudeau, because he made the announcements and then something would happen. Whether it worked or not is another question. But, something would happen. But with Carney, it's a lot of announcements, a lot of flights, press conferences. But then, where's the happening?
He's more of a Kamala Harris, a lot of word salads that you can't get anything out of there. Like we're meeting and, we're prioritizing, we've had meetings and we've got all the stakeholders and no one deal is all deals. But what we are doing is building Canada strong with deals and deals that we're going to look at deals. It's like you're just what? Anyway, Quebec minister warns of two-tier justice after drug trafficker sentence reduced because of his race. We've seen that in British Columbia as well. The Quebec minister responsible for fighting racism has warned that the province risks creating two types of citizens. One is that racialized and one that isn't, after a drug trafficker sentence was reduced because of his skin color. The fight against racism has always been about equality under the law, yet here we're actually well-intentioned but creating inequality. And we've talked about this over and over and over again as well. And it goes back to the DEI thing.
You said it. It's like it happens in BC. It happens everywhere. Yeah. You got the Gladue principles, haven't you? There's quite a lot of stuff on the statute books, and I look through court reports, and it happens very often where people get reduced sentences because of their skin color. This Quebec minister is talking about it as if it's just happened, but this is embedded in the system. It's been happening for a long time.
This is Israel could end military cooperation with the United Kingdom and Canada over recognition of Palestine, according to this report here. If they go ahead because of that pledge to recognize Palestine, according to that report. In the Times, an anonymous source told the paper that Britain and other countries considering diplomatic recognition, including Canada, should carefully consider the consequences of going ahead with this Palestinian recognition.
And that is, obviously this is the Times, which is a British newspaper, so it's concentrating on the British scene. But it highlights what maybe not a lot of people are aware of, which is that Israel's a big dog when it comes to its intelligence. It tends to share a lot of tips with friends like Britain. And it lists in this article the times where it's kind of given Britain a tip off about nutcases in Britain who are doing dangerous deeds, potentially going to commit terrorist acts and so on. So for Israel to threaten to withdraw that is pretty crazy. And it would hurt Canada too, obviously, because Israel benefits from friendship with Canada and with Britain, but Britain and Canada also benefit from their friendship with Israel.
I also did an interview yesterday with one of the mining guys at Blake McLaughlin. He's, I think, VP of Exploration there. And it's a good interview. We talked about mining in Canada and, the lack of mining, the capital flow into junior stocks here has been kind of really dead for, over a decade now. And if you're looking for deposits, it's the explorers that find the deposits, and they usually sell out to mid-tier or large cap stocks or producers. But yeah, he says, it seems like the environment is getting better, but they're going to need to do a lot to really increase where it is. And we talked about some of the history, like Voisey Bay, the big discovery of Voisey Bay. There is a mine that's just been put into play in Ontario, IM Gold's Cote mine. And lots of one of the things that comes out of that discussion, though, is how important our resource sector is to Canada and how we need a really pro-resource government to get these mining things. Because one of the biggest highlights in there is Canada used to be at the top of places to go start a mine. It's Alaska and Nevada right now that are at the top. And Finland is the #1 places to go start a mine. Finland, of all places. And Nevada, I think, and Alaska, I think, are 2 and 3 and stuff like that. So again, with the Trump administration, they're fast-tracking mine permitting, all kinds of things. And in Canada, are we fast-tracking anything?
Well, the law's on the books to theoretically enable fast-tracking, but that's yet to occur, isn't it? I mean, in terms of capital law, that's a really interesting subject, I think. I mean, it may be hard to get people to listen to it, but I find it very interesting because there is a lot of capital floating around in Canada, like pension funds and things like that. Massive, massive amounts of money. Yeah. But where is the incentive to invest it in Canada? Because if the incentive was strong to invest in Canada, or even if you were forced to invest in Canada, you would inevitably turn to these mining firms, wouldn't you? Because they're a pretty sort of reliable rate of return. And they are some of Canada's more sort of competent and successful companies. So they miss out on a lot of capital, I feel. But I mean, it isn't just mining, is it? It's all all companies that are just based in Canada, they miss out on so much capital while everybody else is investing in Apple and Amazon and stuff like that in the US.
We talked about that too, and they are a publicly traded company here in Canada on the CSX, and their projects, they have one project here in BC, but their focus right now is Nevada. Imagine that, Nevada. And here's Captain Canada there. He got on the show with Wolf Blitzer, like the wolf. CNN loving to get Trump trashed, so they got somebody that's more than willing to trash Trump. There's Doug Ford. They look almost like they could be brothers. Let's play this clip here.
Cousins, maybe.
Doug. Big Doug.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them, outside of a few senators. And I want to thank them for coming out and standing with not just American people, but their closest friends and allies, which is Canada. And again, we love the Americans. It's unfortunate President Trump decided to go down this road.
You know what's unfortunate, Doug? That you decided to support the Liberal government that is now doing nothing right now. And he would have ended the EV mandate as well and saved your auto sector. But you're going to lose your auto sector. And nobody do you support, Doug?
Well, I kind of don't blame him for supporting the Liberals now that they're in power. That makes sense, doesn't it? From like, if you're cynical, that would make sense. But the question to ask is, why did he support the Liberals in the election, or sort of like tacitly?
Exactly. Yeah,
that's the weird one.
100%.
Because he's supposed to be in a party that's aligned, kind of semi-formally, with the National Conservative Party. So really, he should have been all guns blazing for Poilievre, but in the event, he didn't do a thing, did he?
The only reason he got on CNN with the wolf there is, which very much ratings left with CNN. They've denigrated their network into, they used to be it started out as the Chicken Noodle Network. That's what they were known as when they launched, because they were the first cable news network. And I think it was the girl stuck in the pipe that really launched them. Remember when they went 24 hours, like Jessica was her name or something? Got stuck in that pipe in Texas. Do you remember that? So that's kind of when they launched. So a young girl, I think a 3-year-old, fell down an oil pipe and she was stuck there for days. And that was the birthplace of 24-hour news. And it was CNN's moment, their coming out moment.
I think they also, as the Tiananmen Square, they were praised for their coverage of that, I seem to remember.
You hit the ChatGPT while we're doing this, but yeah, so it was a girl stuck in an oil pipe, and it was known at the time as the Chicken Noodle Network because all the other media outlets mocked it. And it became one of the best news outlets in the world until they decided that they were going to go all, like anti-Trump in the first election, and then they basically destroyed their viewership, and a lot of their lead journalists have been fired. And Wolf is still there. And the first question from Wolf, why do you hate Trump?
Well, it was almost, he already knows the answer. He already knows what he's going to do.
That's how Doug Ford got on there. It's loaded, right?
The question was, please insult Donald Trump. I'm listening.
Come on, go. And here's another one, the Canadian Franco Tarazio there, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, highlighting another style. She doesn't even get, the Governor General doesn't even get what our Canadian version of Mulder gets. She only gets a paltry $378,000, whereas the Alien Watcher was getting $393. But she does get a clothing allowance,
pension of $150,000 a year as well,
and a $200,000 expense account. That's
after she leaves. But obviously the reason that she doesn't get as much as
Hey, how's that after she leaves? I didn't even read that part. She gets that after.
Yeah, and that 150 G's as well as every year after she leaves. And that's alongside loads and loads of random sinecures that she will inevitably sign up for. She'll probably release a book and all kinds of things like that just to keep the money pouring in.
That's like winning the lottery.
Yeah, it is. And, talking about people getting jobs because of, people being treated differently because of their ethnicity. hate to say it, but I have a feeling that maybe that's why she has that job, because she is, I think, Inuit, isn't she? Something like that, anyway.
Yeah, what she is taken from the Canadian taxpayer, dipping in with both hands, and not even while she's there, after she leaves. $200,000 is an annual expense account after leaving office? How is that even justifiable?
It's amazing, that, isn't it?
How do you spend that much?
I don't know. Flying first class, maybe?
In what role, though? Like, if once you leave office, what role would you have that you would spend 200 grand a year?
Just, you know, dignified role of a great, one of Canada's greats.
And Trump has the art of the deal. Who negotiated that deal? Whoever that is probably beats Trump in negotiating deals. Anyway.
I think the people that negotiated it are the people that benefit from it. So they negotiated for themselves.
And here's our Bill C-18 section, and here's a highlighted by Candace Malcolm, another CBC hit piece gone horribly wrong. This person's getting mocked all over the place. And from the CBC, a reporter in Kamloops accused of uttering falsehoods during a train wreck interview with a professor in the chat about residential schools. A former politics professor, reporter Jordan Tucker, says there have been 6,000 bodies found at this point.
Wild. It's worth looking at that thread and listening to some of the excerpts, because, I mean, sorry to say it, Jordan, but she's obviously not very good at the job. And I've been a journalist for ages, and I've encountered loads of people that aren't good at the job. They're not suited to it, and she's one of them. And, to an extent, it's kind of like you should feel sorry for her, maybe. It was obviously the wrong job for her to have. But still, nonetheless, she represents the glorious CBC that we all pay for and has this privileged position in our society. So you have to hold her to a certain standard. And, she doesn't come anywhere near that. She's very emotional, just like the exact opposite of what you should be as a journalist. As a journalist speaking to somebody, you should be open. You should go in there without any sort of positions or any sort of preconceived, prejudices or anything like that. You should be open. You should listen to people and be fair to people. But she goes in there, it sounds to me, as an opponent of the person that she's interviewing, and it's like in a very emotive way, not just devil's advocate, but almost on the verge of tears. And I mean, I've seen it so many times in newsrooms around the world, I suppose. But yeah, painful.
Somebody here, Zongo the infamous, says maybe we can strike a trade deal with Cuba. I had a friend when I graduated from when I first got my first accounting job that went to Cuba. Was working in the Sherritt mine there. And they actually paid the employees there with, you ready for this? What they paid their employees with? Chickens. They had chickens on the balance sheet, so that's how they paid their employees. They paid them chickens.
Worth more than the currency, I presume.
Well, and that's a nickel mine there in, that was a Canadian joint venture with Cuba there. Michelle Rempel-Garner put this out. The purpose of Bill C-11, this is similar to C-18, was always to give the federal government control over what Canadians can and can't see online. And the National Post put an article, major threat to trade, U.S. Congress is calling for Canada to rescind Online Streaming Act.
Well, if you want to know what that's going to look like, look at what the British are doing now. It's just, there's so much evidence for us to look at before we decide to go ahead with things like this.
Yeah, we're gonna have to speed her up a bit. We're into it a bit. We're into an international section now, and we got a little clip here from the new president of Poland, Karol Nawrocki there. Nawrocki. I don't know.
Moja Polska jest Polską bez nielegalnych migrantów. Tak, jest Polską bez nielegalnych migrantów. Jest Polską, w której zamiast ośrodków integracji są ośrodki deportacji dla tych, którzy chcą zniszczyć nasze bezpieczeństwo.
Ursula's not going to like that.
Well, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, is an old European Union official, a very senior one, and he's not going to like that either. So there's going to be some, there'll be some fights, I'm sure, domestically in Poland.
And then breaking news, Chicago has been like kind of a train wreck there for they were giving money to Sanctuary City and all that stuff. And here's a little clip here from Mayor Brandon Johnson.
We have reached a point of no return. The systems that people rely upon, education, healthcare, housing, our transportation, they are woefully under.
They ran out of money.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not their fault.
They gave away all their money to illegal immigrants and a bunch of other things that they spent their money on. Now they got no money. So now they got no money for basic things.
So therefore they need to raise the taxes massively. And then there's a reasonable chance that people will look at that and say, all right, see you later. I'm going to go and move to, whatever, some other city.
And this one's surprising. Like Keir Starmer put this video out. Listen to this. You can probably kill the volume. Just got text there. Basically saying if you come in this country in a small boat, he's going to send you back.
I mean, you won't be surprised in the least to hear that the truth is that no, he won't send you back. Don't worry about it. Get on the boat. You're fine. There's no worries because of laws that he refuses to change.
Yeah. Let's head into our BC news here, and this is there's Brenda Bailey and the finance minister that I've was promised an interview with. I'm going to reach out again and see if I can get that interview now that they've dropped their budget. And BC debt grows 50% in 2 years to $134 billion. And one of the things, the shining lights, they're saying, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be because we had a little bit extra from ICBC, which is just another tax, right? And so the question I have then is if you're counting ICBC revenues in the total there, does that mean you're taking ICBC revenues and spreading it out into your other programs? So then are the people that are paying ICBC premiums, are they also now paying for your other wish lists or whatever you want to do, where you refuse to cut on and hiring? And this is one of the things, how much money has David Eby and them spent on consultants? And even when they had to fire some consultants, they doled out big severance packages, right?
Yeah, but also something I find remarkable about this, you talk about Brenda Bailey, she's tried to frame the disastrous fiscal position of British Columbia and the enormous amounts of debt that the province is suffering from. She tries to frame that as like a moral necessity, where she's talking about schools, hospitals, transportation networks. She's like, yes, we are experiencing debt, and that reflects the fact that our government remains committed to ensuring that we support British Columbians. What? So it's like if you don't love debt and have a plan to commit to massive amounts of debt, then you just hate British Columbians. Then you're just a bad person. Even though obviously the more debt that they take on, the less money there is to spend on all these lovely things, because you have to spend loads of money on interest payments.
And it's not like everything's going well in BC though. Like healthcare, we just got, as we were coming on, another hospital closed here, ER closure. And that was, I think, in Caramias, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then, and the scary part is that they're starting to close ERs in the lower mainland. Like Delta, we saw that last week, or this week, I think it was. And then, like in Kelowna, we saw the KGH pediatric ward closed. We see the same thing going on in the maternity ward in the Royal Inland Hospital in Kamloops. And so housing in terrible shape here in British Columbia. And we did this story yesterday, but here's this tweet here from Mark Nixon. 70,000 people, this is the global story, 70,000 people left BC last year, the worst in decades, and housing affordability broke them. David Eby failed the province. 2/3 of people leaving are under the age of 40. That's the bad part. If all we're left with is a bunch of people that are, pensioners and different things, the boomers, the elbows up crowd, that's not a prosperous British Columbia. Not even a good future for British Columbia if the youth leave to Alberta.
Yeah, which is a bit odd because Alberta's economy doesn't exactly look that great, does it? I mean, it has its own troubles. But I mean, I say that, but compared to BC's, Alberta's in paradise, really, isn't it?
I think Alberta's unemployment woes are more to do with a lot of immigration there. But if you
they did just post a surplus again, didn't they? As they often do.
If you have good skills, there's good jobs in Alberta, and the housing is way cheaper. Food is way cheaper. And also, the big thing is there's no provincial sales tax. So there's no property transfer tax. Like, if we can go down the list of taxes, there's no employer health tax. You get free, like, you know what I mean? Like here in BC, there's an employer health tax. You get free health care there as well. But they don't have the employers paying for it. And so it's all more cost to the employers. The provincial sales tax is huge. Like, to buy a used car, the difference in British Columbia, a used car, a $50,000 used car here or less, is 14% sales tax. So that car, if it's sold 5-6 times, could actually generate more in sales tax than the car is worth. And they don't even let you state the value of the car. They look it up in a book and say, even if you got a deal on a car, they're saying, no, you're paying that much tax. That's what it is.
And then that money goes straight into Brenda Bailey's
wind
files,
farms,
doesn't it? So
right
she can spend it on a wind farm.
Dole it out to corporate welfare, to these special interest groups that are building wind farms. And this seems like we're doing a story at least every week on this. Here's another. We did one yesterday. BC man banned from teaching just for 10 years for sexual assault conviction. Just 10 years. Why not forever? Why not say you just don't deal with children anymore?
Just BC as well, yeah.
Yeah, just why? Why just 10 years? And he was a high school teacher employed in the Southeast Kootenay district, right? He was charged with 1 count of sexual assault. The next month, he was notified that, I think there's several charges here, right? He was convicted on August 30, 2022, and in May 2023, he was given a conditional sentence of 2 years less a day and will follow up 1 year probation. In October 23, he gave it an undertaking not to teach in any role until the final resolution of the matter. And you can go on Clone 9, you can read that, right? And they said he's not a good
sentence, though, isn't it?
Not a person of good moral. He's not a good person of moral character and otherwise fit to proper work as a teacher. Yet, in 10 years, he'll be fine.
Not genuinely remorseful. There's another comment in that report. Wow.
And then people wonder why people are upset with the education system. We did a story yesterday. Same stuff. Yesterday was a grade 8 teacher. So you're going to send your kids just barely out of elementary school, and the teacher's inviting them over to their house for dinner and hugging them and sending them texts and talking about 69 positions and mouthwash.
I mean, thankfully, it's a tiny minority of teachers, but it's still kind of extraordinary, isn't it, nonetheless?
Let's move on to markets. Stock markets at all-time highs. There you go, and up today again. The Dow is at 44,173. According to the left-wing lunatics, the stock market should have crashed by now, but apparently not. So the board is green all across the board, including the TSX and the NASDAQ. And we got a little clip here to play for crypto. Did we play this yesterday from Don Trump Jr.? Did we play this clip? Let's play this clip here from Don Trump Jr., the junior. Let's play it.
Where there was I could call any single banker in New York City. They'd pick up the phone. I'd be able to get a loan for whatever real estate project I was doing across the street. Then we got into politics, and all of a sudden, they wouldn't take your call. Right. You couldn't get financing. We were debanked. And what I realized, and my brother realized, because we were the recipients of every subpoena imaginable, was that, you know what, we were actually just the top of this sort of pyramid scheme that we didn't realize we were a part of, that the financial system was totally undemocratized. Because we had a certain balance sheet and whatever, we could kind of do whatever we wanted. The regular guy was messed up. Now we were all of a sudden in the shoes of the regular guy that wouldn't be able to take advantage of the markets. And we said, what's the solution for that? The answer is crypto. These decentralized platforms where you're not beholden to this, where you create efficiencies. As a guy that did real estate, why am I paying
up there? So they were debanked. The Trump family, including the former president at that time, after he lost in 2020, they phoned him up and said, you got to take your money out of the bank. That's why he signed that new legislation or executive order saying that has to stop. Melania was also debanked. And it's happening here in Canada. That's the part of it. Eva Chipwick, the lawyer in Canada for the Freedom Convoy, Eva Chipwick got a letter. We had it on here that she was by the Royal Bank of Canada said you have, I can't remember, it's 30 days, 45 days to remove your accounts from Canada. And I talked to the Bitcoin guy here. He was debanked, and I also have a friend in the markets that had some crypto stuff, and they were debanked. But anyway, so the Trump family was debanked, and they put their money in crypto. Turns out that was a fortuitous thing to do, right? Because that crypto was a lot cheaper back then, like a lot cheaper, like 10 times.
What possible motivation could these banks have for debanking people, like that lawyer,
Political,
the one that you mentioned?
Again, choke them off.
Who's sat in the offices at RBC in senior executive positions with that level of political sort of, activism?
Well,
what the hell is going on?
They did that with the Freedom Convoy, didn't they? When they went after even like the small bakery in Victoria. And then the CBC dutifully trotted that story out in Canadian press, talking about how that bakery is being punished because they're funneling money into, like terrorist causes or whatever, overthrow of the government by funneling $250 a donation into the, and they froze her bank accounts, and they debanked people. So anyway,
that was the state, wasn't it? That was Chrystia Freeland trying to push that to happen. But
under the
RBC in this case,
under the advice of who? Mark Carney,
Mr. Carney. But in this case, RBC they haven't been compelled by law.
Well, she's
one would assume to do this.
She's filed a suit against RBC, so we'll see.
But it is, if you think about the actual details of that story, it is insane, isn't it, to think that there's somebody that is so politicized at Canada's biggest company, Canada's biggest bank, and just sat there saying, oh yeah, I saw her on Twitter actually, like, let's take a bank account away. If that's truly happening, that is that's beyond insane, isn't it? I mean, there should be hearings on that. There should be a commission into that.
That's why a lot of people are worried about CBDCs here in Canada, because that gives... Right now, the politicians have to go to the banks and ask them to do it, right, or tell them to do it, or whatever they want. But the CBDC, then the government has control over the CBDC.
No.
Don't even have to ask. And that's what a lot of people said in the Freedom Convoy, that the banks should have pushed back harder. And that's what John Carpe said from the Justice Center. And they're going after those records. So that was one of the interviews I did with them. It was a trucker. They're going after the records from the RCMP and the banks as to why they froze his bank account. And then Scott Bassett there, I won't play because we got lots of time. He's just saying that they're, like the American government now is going big on digital assets and cryptos. DJT, this is Donald Trump is stock on trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol DJT. Has purchased over $2 billion worth of crypto. I should say Bitcoin. So 2/3 of their assets are in Bitcoin.
Interesting. Bit of a conflict of interest, perhaps.
The really big show technology section here, and this is what we're going to see in the future. This is a little clip here how you can bring your dead relatives back to life here, and this is. You remember watching? Did you watch Man of Steel? Have you ever watched Man of Steel?
No, I haven't seen it.
Superman, and then where he pulls the crystal out, puts it in, and then his father comes alive, and it's basically AI, but it's his father's image in that. So here's a little clip here. So that's good, yeah. So that the father had passed away, and it's one way to, they say you can sit down with AI for a couple hours and tell them about yourself, and then AI will, your future relatives can listen to your story straight from your mouth.
Wow. It's almost like a very primitive version of the brain upload, which has been theorized, hasn't it? You could just like upload your consciousness to a machine. It's like an extremely basic version of that.
If that's true, there's a lot of Canadians that could probably go get a reset.
Or a refund. Get a new one.
There you go. OpenAI says beats Grok. Apparently, OpenAI 4-0 in the final. So that's they got this chess game here. So it's heating up.
Apparently, Grok was doing really well in the competition at the start, and then in the final just started to go really weird and make loads of mistakes. That's what I've heard.
Must have got Elonized, right? According to some, right?
Yeah, too busy doing Nazi salutes rather than moving the pawns around.
And then here you go, Doug Ford. Doug Ford. Dodge unveils Stellantis, basically, Stellantis owns Dodge, unveils new additions to its 2026 muscle car lineup. And guess what? They're not EVs. The 2026 Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat Jailbreak is a new 3-row muscle SUV featuring 710 horsepower, Hemi V8 engine. Not an EV. And then the other one is a 2026 Charger Scat Pack. 6-pack twin turbo.
Funny name.
Twin turbo inline 6 engine. There you go. Charger will have a high output 550 horsepower option as well as. And this is what they're building.
Scat packs.
Scat packs. Gas cars.
Sounds like something a hunter would use to bait a bear or something, doesn't it? Get the scat pack out.
This is what Dodge sells. This is or Stellantis. That's their bread and butter. Is these muscle cars. Like Ford F-150 is like, that's what their thing is, the Ford F-150, right? And, Chevy has a few different things. They're, like Corvette and, their trucks are a pretty good line too, but.
Don't they have that minivan as well? Is that them? Can't remember. One of them's got a minivan, haven't they? Oh, that's Dodge actually, isn't it? Dodge Caravan.
I gave up on the minivan a long time ago when our kids got older. Like, that was one of the worst vehicles we've ever owned, the minivan. I remember once in elementary school when the kids there, when the Dodge Caravan came out and they had the 2 doors that you open up. You get the 2 sliders and you can kind of like pass through. And one of the moms, a brand new Dodge minivan, and I was running this game, and it was kick the soccer ball through the side of the van, through the van, right? And it was 25 cents or something, a dime to kick the soccer ball. Guess where do you think the kids were kicking the ball? Do you think they were trying to kick it through?
At the windscreen.
Yeah, they were kicking it at the side of the van, and I was just like thinking, like, I said to the lady, "Are you sure? Because this is going to get scratched up really bad." She said, "Oh no, it'll be good." I'm sure when she took it home, and her husband said, "What is going on the side of this vehicle? All the dents and stuff on the side." And I tried to warn her, I said, "This is a bad idea," but she's like, "Oh no, it'll be fine." Okay.
The things you do to amuse children, I suppose.
Apparently, in our health section here. The Maha, it's so they're because they got food stamps in the United States. They're banning the use of soda and sugary snacks to be used. You can't buy that with your food stamps in 13 states now.
Few videos doing the rounds. People very upset about that in Walmart and places like that.
Yeah. You get your 2-liter. I've watched kids chug a 2-liter. The kids need that, right?
It has. I mean, it's like no exaggeration, is it? It's not fake news to say that has like 0 nutritional value. It's not even a little bit, is it? It's just all crap.
I don't know if the science has been decided on that.
Got to get the Fanta down your neck.
Yeah, because here, during COVID here, what did we have that was open that never closed? Liquor stores, weed shops, those never closed because
Yeah.
And what was I think it was Doug Ford and a couple of the health ministers that were very large were saying during COVID when you were locked down to make cheesecake and cookies. Okay?
Well, they were trying to say, like, be a patriot and order takeout and get some Chinese food or pizza or something. It's like, what? Good times.
And here we are.
Use your Serb check to get yourself some pizza right now. Here
we are in the Are You Serious section where we're going to have a little bit of fun. Carney's going to... I don't know where you're going there. But Carney's going to visit the military today. And this is the Canadian military. We need your air support. And then there's a skywriter there. That could be from Sky Canada, actually. You can do it. That's the guy off of Happy Gilmore. You can do it. When it calls for air support in Canada, they send the guy out with the "you can do it" thing, right? I think that guy that says it in the movie, "You can do it," is actually Canadian too. There you go. And then this kangaroo.
I don't think have I seen that film? I don't even know if I have.
Happy Gilmore.
Actually, Norm Macdonald's in that film, isn't he? So maybe it's him.
No. Did you got the kangaroo? Yeah, let's this kangaroo has learned how to get free food. He pretends fainting. People feed him, and he's just like, yeah, I'll take some of that. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
They are such weird animals, aren't they? Like, the more I see of kangaroos, the weirder I think they are.
So I did my grade, and I still remember this very vividly. I did my grade 6 book report on kangaroos. And that was back in the day when the encyclopedia, you would get into the library and they would present you the encyclopedia and tell you, because there was only one set in the library. And they would present it to you and make, open the page to what you wanted so you didn't touch it. And then you could write your book report out of there. And
Wow.
I still remember that kangaroos basically can fit in a tablespoon when they're born. They're a marsupial, actually. Like, they're a large rat. They're marsupial. So they're very tiny. And then they're born and they crawl up the fur and crawl into the pouch and finish their development in the pouch.
Yeah, cozy.
And
but they also have fights, don't they? They like put
yeah,
their
that's a
chest
joey,
out and-
right? That's the joey in there. And yeah, they know how to fight it. They stand on their back tail and then they use their back
Yeah.
legs, and they could probably kick you 100 miles, right?
There's some really, really funny videos of Australians having fights with kangaroos. There's one where a guy like chins the kangaroo and actually wins.
Like, if you look at his little paws there, we don't have that image up there anymore, but his little paws, they're not little paws. They're like massive claws, right? Like, they are.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to pick a fight with a kangaroo, but this one's figured out how to get some free lunch. And then this was so good yesterday, I thought we'd play it again here, because Poilievre's had his election here just in 10 days. And he probably needs a little pick-me-up, so there be up here. We're giving you got the heart on your head, spreading love out there. And then Mark Carney says he doesn't care if you got love on your head.
He's got love on his face, hasn't he? One-sided love.
Or you could look at it another way. That's the signal to Canada. This is what the Liberals think of you. There you go. And hiking, and this is from Mark Nixon. This is Are You Serious? Hiking costs $25,000 in Nova Scotia. Maybe we just think of that as the price of admission, right? So $20 billion to Ukraine, $37 million for the best water bomb. 40, yeah.
Is that accurate? 20 billion? I don't know. I would question that.
I don't know. And then this one is spreading across the U.S. We showed it yesterday, like the American flag. Let's wonder if the Canadian universities will pick up on this and start doing some dancing with the Canadian flag. Do you think that's going to happen? There you go.
No. And if it did, the CBC would make sure that stopped forthwith.
There you go. We'll play it, and we'll turn the music off after like 20 seconds or 10 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever. But here you go. Another sorority. So this, I think, I can't remember. Rush talk is what's going on. So this is going across sorority houses where they can actually display the American flag again publicly without feeling retribution.
I'm sorry, I have to correct myself there. I have to correct my suspicion. Mark Nixon, this random Twitter man, was actually right. It is 20 billion since the invasion of Ukraine.
It's chicken feed.
That's a hell of a lot of money. I think that's more than a lot of European countries have paid anyway.
Yes, but we can stand at the podium and say we've done it. How much have we spent on our own Canadian military? But I think Trudeau said at one time, it's a small price to pay instead of having to send Canadians to that war.
Yeah, he's not very subtle, is he? The Americans have said stupid things like that as well, haven't they? Like along the lines of, it's them dying, not us. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think Trump is getting something for it now. When he's giving them money and weapons, he's like, yeah, I get that, that, and that, right? He's doing the old European way about things, right? Just like, so what's in it for me?
Well, he's got crazy, I don't know if it's going to mean anything in the long run, but that minerals deal and some other things, yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're awaiting the negotiations because that meeting with Trump and Putin here is up and coming. But he is meeting with a couple other countries that are at war. It says he's going to solve another war. I think it's Armenia, and I can't remember the other war, but it's on his street.
Azerbaijan. Yeah.
So he says he's going to knock out another war. He's got like 5 in his credits. He's really working on that Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, what was he saying? He wants to create the Trump the Trump Highway for Peace and Prosperity or something like that in Armenia and Azerbaijan.
How many wars has
funny.
Canada stopped so far?
The War of 1812, you could say. That was one.
We stopped that one?
Well, stop the Americans conquering Canada, I guess. And now we're doing it again.
That was a bunch of drunken British and then a few Canadians that went down there and burned down the White House. And the Americans just didn't have it in them to have another fight because they just finished their own independence fight there, so they just didn't really have any thirst for any more blood.
Well, they actually started that war. Dirty Americans. That's you, Americans, talking to you.
Well, there you go. Well, they can finish it now. Let's hope they don't want to finish it.
Yeah, I mean, they nearly did have a go as well, in sort of around about the year 1900. Either side of that, it looked like they might have had a go, but that's when they could have got their revenge. But too late now.
So you're off next week.
Patriotic trip,
so,
yeah.
Now I've got to decide whether I'm going to do the show next week or if we're just going to leave it for a week. I don't know. I won't make that decision. I'm not sure. Not sure at this point. Here,
see if we can get Christia to come on. She would be a good foil for you, wouldn't she?
Yeah, you know, Tracy Allen there, Trump is outraged at the slaughter of young men. I mean, everybody should be. I've had the guy from Friends of Kiev on many times here. He says there's no young men or no men walking around Kiev at all. They're all at the front lines dying. And now, you know, like there's a journalist that said that they're now taking, it was the 60 and over who didn't have to go there, but now they're taking them as well. So,
and there weren't very many of them in the first place. There weren't very many young Ukrainian men because they haven't been having kids, just like Japan and other countries.
I interviewed some other young Ukrainians here that were having their visa. They weren't getting their like resident status here. You know, the kid was turning 18, and he was the young man was facing deportation back to Ukraine, and it would basically get off the airplane and a ticket to the front line.
From Kelowna to Kherson.
Basically a death. Canada talks about how they want to, like help people from being persecuted. You're basically giving that kid a death warrant, right? Sending him back. And
Except
he's going to go to the
doesn't
front
count as
line.
persecution, does it? When it's something happening that we approve of.
Anyway, sad. When you sit there,
it was completely devastating, to be honest. And the Russians, the Russians are doing similar, but they also have this they're trying to get people from the ethnic minorities within Russia, so like the Caucasus, Central Asians, and they're just trying to send them there.
They're paying big money to some of these kids they're sending to the front line. People are doing.
They're mercenaries basically.
Yeah, money for the families, and that if they don't make it, at least the family gets a big check. The only people getting the money in the Ukraine is
like a few rubes.
There's been a few allegations that a lot of that money that went to Ukraine is the top brass there has been pilfering off the top.
Well, I mean, how many corruption investigations have there been? Quite a number so far. It's always a scandal in Ukraine. Ukraine has since it came into existence 30 years ago or whatever, this new version of Ukraine, it's always been crippled by corruption. So obviously it's going to still be there. Just because they're at war, corrupt people aren't going to stop being corrupt, are they?
That's our show for today, though. And again, Ian's off for a week, so we won't see Ian, and I'll determine what we're going to do next week here. Until then, thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here, too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local.